Are you ready to untangle from your past, recover from heartbreak, and revive your life? This is Soul CPR with your host, Ann Papayoti. We've all had soul-crushing experiences and lost ourselves in our pain, but there is a way out. On this podcast, Amazon best-selling author, award-winning life coach, and advice columnist Ann Papayoti helps us navigate the path from heartbreak to healing. So now, please welcome the host of Soul CPR, Ann Papayoti.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. It's going to be an incredible show and one that I think you will long remember, and a story that's going to stay very, very close to your heart. But before I welcome my special guest for today, I want to expound a little bit on last week's show. And I had some questions that came up with people that I spoke with after. So let me just talk a little bit about that. And the show was on the mind-body connection. And let's just say, let's get back to the question. And really, it's about how emotions can get stuck in the body. And research supports that there is a mind body connection. And if you want to say, it's really about how a person's mental and emotional well being can affect their physical health, right? So the question comes up that how can emotions get stuck in our bodies and create some level of discomfort? So researchers say that basically three things happen when we experience an emotion. So let's think of an emotion. Let's think of a state, maybe fear. That's something we've all experienced at some point in our lives, certainly probably often. Researchers would say that the brain would take in that information, right? It takes in a lot of information all day long, but it interprets the situation. In this case, it interprets something that's going to make us feel afraid. It then activates the sympathetic nervous system, which creates that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. And that's really just a hormonal roller coaster that's happening when that nervous system is activated, right? So what's happening is really an emotional vibration. So this is the first step in that three-step process. So the brain signals the nervous system signals the body. So the second step, researchers say, is that we're now thinking the thoughts. We know that we're afraid. And then we start feeling the physical sensations that are associated. So think about when you're afraid, what happens? Maybe in your body, maybe your hands start trembling, right? That's one thing. Or your throat tightens. Maybe there's a little pain with that. It's restricted. This is the mind body interconnection starting to happen. And the third step in that process might be that's when the that's that might be is I should say is when we start processing the emotion, and that's in another part of the brain, the limbic. And this is when we're regulating the emotion, if you will, and we're starting to relieve the nervous system from its duty, and we're returning to the parasympathetic nervous system where rest and digest occurs. So think of it like you're watching a scary movie, and then you throw the popcorn and everything, and then all of a sudden you're able to relax again. So according to researchers, it's when this second or third step is interrupted, the energy of that emotion now can become trapped. And so it never got to be processed. You didn't go through the thinking and the full feeling and then be able to process it. Somewhere between those two places, it becomes trapped. And as a result, you may experience muscle tension or pain or discomfort that we were talking about, or other ailments, even in disease that we talked about last week. And so, therefore, you may find this unintentional and unexpected release while you're exercising. Or if you've identified, past traumas, you may choose to find an exercise to begin releasing the pain in the body by connecting the mind to it to help have that release. So if you haven't listened to last week's show already, give it a listen, and 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 maybe you'll find more of a connection to what I'm talking about now. Now, today's guest is well versed in holistic well-being and mindfulness. She's also had quite a stellar career as a seasoned people and program manager and office leader in information technology world. And you know what? But I would say that what she really I would say is the most meaningful thing or achievement and accomplishment in her life is having become an author to share her story um, about her journey with her daughter. And her book is called Lauren's Vision, a mother and daughter's journey of love, loss, and learning to live again. So there's a lot she'll be sharing with us today. So please welcome to the show, Lisa Cummins. Hello, Lisa.
And how are you?
I am well. I'm so happy you're here with me. And I guess I should start by telling the audience that first and foremost, we are friends. And we met, I believe it's been about 8 years ago now. Is that right?
Many years, yeah, almost a long time, almost 10 years.
Yeah, we are definitely headed in that direction. So, speaking of holistic well being and mindfulness and wellness, it was at an NLP, was it a conference training event in
Yeah.
Miami? And I think my listeners have learned now when I was living in Canada, I always chose Miami and South Florida for these types of events. And I tend to always meet fantastic people. And as you can see, Lisa's beautiful on the outside. She's just as beautiful on the inside. And we connected right away. Yeah, we did. We share many things of interest beyond holistic well being. We connected with a small group of women. We had our other Lisa, Lisa P, and the lovely Simona, who we connected with and shared this journey of learning about neuro linguistics programming, and we connected as a group for learning and certifying and beyond that training to finish our post Miami work together. But you and I continued connecting because we shared a loss that um, we hope others don't know, but we know many do, and that is the loss of a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your book, Lauren's Vision, is I know was something that you shared with me then. You wanted to write. It was a goal to write. It still took years to get to that point. When I met you, it had only been a year since Lauren's passing. But tell us about the journey of actually writing the book and about the vulnerability that was in that, maybe.
Oh, well, like you said, we all have a story to tell. It's just a matter of choosing, to tell it or not in the form in which we tell it. And, you know, I always wanted to write a story about Lauren's life. And yes, though she passed away at a very young age of 17, Um, I started writing this book before she passed because I thought I was going to write a very different story. One where she was here with us. You talked about the mind body connection. Part of my journey was a very spiritual journey as well as a holistic journey. I work in the corporate world. I have done so for 30 plus years. And I was very right brain. But, taking this journey with Lauren, she was diagnosed with was what was supposed to be a benign brain tumor when she was just 2, but over the course, the tumor continued to grow. It continued to affect her body. I continued to infuse her with positivity. Look down every single path, and Western, Eastern, spiritual opportunities to explore. And really, I think it made it. I know it made a huge change in her life, and I wanted to write this story of how my thinking was, if I do all these things and I do them all the right way, it's sure to have the outcome of health and happiness. And part of the spiritual journey was coming to learn and understand that there is unconditional love, and that love is always with you. And sometimes to complete our journeys, or all of us to complete our journeys one day, will pass and cross over. So I went from writing this story of all these things I did to basically bring her back to well-being and to live to this point where she passed. And then it was a very different story that I wanted to write. And every time I picked up the pen to write the story and to try and finish the book, it seems like another shoe dropped. At the time that I met you, yes, it was just a little over a year after Lauren passed. So she passed in 2015. And then at that time I met you, I had concerns about my marriage. And, my husband at that time was saying he wasn't sure how he was feeling. And I know the loss of a child is, if anyone has experienced that or know anyone who has, can alter and change your marriage. But that put another big. I then had to stop focusing. I was in the midst of grieving at that point, and then had to focus now on the potential. It wasn't sure what was going to happen in my marriage, so it took a long time and had different life events, and that occurred. So when I finally did pick up the pen, I hired a book coach, and again thought she was going to write the story, and I could just tell her about it. But it turned out that I wanted it told in a very specific way, and it ended up being very cathartic for me. And
Yeah.
something my book coach said to me was, sometimes it's too soon to write, and it's much like grieving. Sometimes it's too soon, but it's never too late. So it took me about 7 years after Lauren passed to finish and complete it, but I finally wrote it and had to go through many iterations because as different things happened that we'll talk about. It turned out just to be, the focus really just on Lauren's life, the journey we went on together, and how everything that I taught her, I ended up needing to use myself to deal with unexpected twists and turns in my life. So I'll stop there for a minute.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I love how you said yes. Everybody has a story, and going in to actually write this book. I love what your book coach shared with you, that it's never too late, and that writing was cathartic, because that's the journey, right? I was going to ask you, how healing was it to actually write the book, or to write Lauren's story, whether you publish it or not. I think there's a lot of research that shows that just writing and getting the story out. So for any listener who's gone through such a loss, to share the story, I believe is healing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I did a lot of journaling, all throughout things that happened in my life. And then as I journeyed with Lauren through different parts of the phases that she went through, never thinking that this would ever lead her to, for her to pass. But it was very cathartic. And I had to take pauses after writing certain pieces because it's very emotional. And then once you reread what you wrote, and again, if it's just for you, that's one thing. It's cathartic and healing in itself. But again, my book coach kind of guided me with a lot of questions to ask myself. It was kind of book therapy. It wasn't just book coaching, it was book therapy. And she would ask me a lot of questions. In the end, she said, "Who are you writing this book for? If you're writing it for yourself, that's one, train of thought and thinking and writing. But if you're writing it for your family, that's another thought about what legacy do you want to leave." And if the one that I finally focused on was, if you're writing this for an audience, who is that audience, and what's the message you want them to walk away with? And I wanted to write this book to help even just one person who, for many facet, if they had lost a child, but if they had any other kind of loss, because I went through the loss of not only my child, but my marriage of 25 years ended up coming to an end. And I also, in a very short period of time, also lost my job of 32 years shortly after I got separated. So I went through a lot of loss, but it was also this amazing, incredible journey of, I always say that it was my honor and privilege to be Lauren's mother. And it's for any parent, sibling, teacher, family member, friend who knows somebody that has an illness or even a disability, because we didn't touch on this yet, but because of the brain tumor, Lauren lost vision in her left eye. And then she eventually lost the rest of her vision by the time she turned age 11. And I always say that though Lauren lost her sight, she never lost her vision for how she wanted to live her life, which is why the book is called Lauren's Vision. And two other really special things about Lauren that I'd like to share is how incredible she was. She ended up going through multiple chemo treatments, radiation, hospital, surgeries for one reason or another. But one day, a doctor in the hospital asked her how she was doing, as they all do. How are you feeling today? And one day, she just turned around and instead of saying great, she said she was HPH. And we all said, what does that mean? And she said, happy, positive, and healthy. And that was just how she lived her life. She had this amazingly, incredibly positive attitude. And another thing that she did as she lost her vision, she needed to do things like OT and PT. And I always was looking for things to engage her and keep her busy. She ended up making these bracelets that are very special. I know you have yours on.
Yes,
Um, and if you take a close look, they're made out of star, butterflies, and hearts. And Lauren said she put love, energy, and power into every bead. And this ended up becoming, she would make these bracelets all the time until the point where she couldn't make them. And then she enlisted her cousins to help make them for her. She loved to give them away to people. And she would just seem to have this sense of like some people she would give to these bracelets to these people and they would just come to tears. So it was just one of her signature gifts that continues to touch people and their lives. And, whether they're a friend, family member, or even a total stranger, if they hear her story and they get one of her bracelets, some of them never take it off.
and that is a perfect place for us to transition. We're going to take our first commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about Lauren, her vision beyond her sight. So don't go far. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, I have my friend Lisa Cummins with me to talk about her book, Lauren's Vision, a mother and daughter's journey of love, loss, and learning to live again. So while I'm holding this book up, Lisa, talk to us about the cover of the book and the design. And we were talking about her bracelets, and there's a bracelet on the cover.
Yeah, that's her bracelet on the cover. And that picture is a picture from Aruba, which was one of Lauren's favorite places in the whole world. It's where she just had so much happiness and joy. And she frequently would go around the pool at the resort that we stayed at to give out her bracelets. But the title Lauren's Vision, like I said, is because Lauren never lost her zest for life, her vision of how she wanted to live. And that actual scripted version of Lauren's Vision was one of the I had enlisted a lot of girls to help me take care of Lauren. She got to a point when she couldn't, when she lost her vision, she needed help with all of her daily activities. So I actually ended up hiring college students that were in the holistic field or medical field. And one of them actually wrote that and put that on her board. So I was searching for the title and it was right in front of me the whole time. And really the subtitle is just about exactly what the story is. It's the journey I took with Lauren, and just the love that we shared, the loss that we both endured, and for me, how to end up living again, and taught Lauren, like I taught Lauren so much, but she ended being my teacher. So, that's where the book title and cover came from.
And the bracelet you were wearing, and you had given me one and the other girls at our NLP conference, and I treasure it. Thank you so much. The butterfly, the heart, and the star. And you were talking about love, energy, and power. So what does each one? The butterfly is?
Yeah. So Lauren had a very specific order that she liked to put the bracelets in, and they kind of all nestled in one over the other. So the star is power, and the butterfly is energy, and the heart, of course, is love.
Beautiful.
So she would say that all the time: love, energy, and power.
All right. And then throughout the book, there are little sketches, right? Like little drawings, and those are from, or what do those represent?
So there's 3 sections of the book, and each section represents, there's a star behind one section, butterfly and heart. So that's what that is. So there's just scrolls in the back as again, it's my little wink to Lauren,
Yes.
throughout the book, so that her love, energy, and power is on every page. And I think, and people have said they really feel that.
Yes, the book is broken down into those 3 sections: love, energy, and power. It is beautifully written. The chapter titles are really, I want to say clever. Let's say thoughtful. I think they're magical on some level, Lisa, honestly. And when I look at them, they're like in section 1, there are titles like Staying Normal, Broken Heart, New Direction, Light and Love. It really, just the titles take you on a journey. And when look, there's one in section 2 called Faith, Family, and Friends. How important was faith, family, and friends on your birth, Lauren?
Incredibly important. And I'll touch on one thing. We talked about writing the book before, even coming up with the sections, how I wanted to section it, the titles or the subtitles. It was creating the roadmap for what I wanted to tell and how I wanted to tell it. And yes, each one of those titles is a trigger for something very important. And faith, family, and friends is just something that when people ask me, how did you get through that? Or even while we were going through it, it was only through my faith, family, and friends that you can get through, an illness and the toll that it takes as a family to be supportive. When I told you earlier, I had girls that I, enlisted, and I called them Team Lauren, and I always let Lauren know that, we were going to get through this together. We're a family, and it will be through. And I was very spiritual and instilled a lot of faith into her. And we did affirmations. And Lauren really, even at a very young age, as young as 6, would say her affirmations and say them loud and boldly. And faith, family, and friends, can't do it without it.
Yeah. And so I hear the holistic side kicking in. How did the corporate training, how did that project management, program management help you through her illness?
Well, that really kicked in because I documented everything. For anyone that's ever had to go to doctors, they ask the same questions over and over, even when you're in the hospital. So I basically created something I called Lauren's Notebook, and I documented everything. I'm a spreadsheet girl. I have spreadsheet after spreadsheet to document. Nothing was ever an issue until it became a pattern. And as the tumor grew and changed shape and different things occurred, um, I actually put my project management and program management skills, to use by laying out. I would have calendars, even for writing this book. I had a spreadsheet the size of an entire door to lay out the every year, every month of her life when significant things happen. But while she was here and I was journeying with her, I kept notes and documented everything and managed her care. I had to have one spreadsheet for when, people were coming to assist her, other spreadsheets for her medical and doctor visits, another spreadsheet for, different symptoms she was having and what we did. So, yeah, having those PM skills really, really helped out, staying organized, staying calm under pressure. um, you know, it was a lot to handle. But when I got into that mindset, I was able to focus on what do I need to do? What has to get done here? And I would always say that when there was a real big crisis, I could focus on what the crisis was and take action, and then fall apart when it was done.
Yeah, yeah. I can see that in you for sure. Absolutely. Um, I'm going back now to Lauren answering the doctor with HPH. And just I can imagine his face. But what about, do you have a favorite story of her? And because I know some of them because I've been privy to this time with you, but for our listeners, Lauren's love. Let's focus on that a moment. Do you have a favorite story you'd like to share?
Well, I do have a favorite story, but you just triggered another one that's real quick. And I'll just tell you, the doctor that asked her how she was,
Yeah.
Lauren couldn't see at this point, but there were these two neurosurgeons that came in, and they were young. I guess they were in their 30s or 40s. I'm going to consider that young. And one of them she called Dr. McDreamy, and he was tall and handsome. And I don't know how she knew. And that there was another young doctor, and he, told her to call him Todd. And he goes, "What about me?" And she said, "You're just Todd." We love all the nurses swooning over who she called Dr. McDreamy. So she just had this way. She was a little flirt as well. But another favorite story of mine, I think that really, hits home because it just shows, the sense that Lauren had of people. We were at Stony Brook University Hospital here on Long Island, and she had just taken another one of many MRIs and just finished. And at that time, she must have been only 6 or 7. She had already started making her bracelets. Initially, she made poppet bead bracelets. But there was my husband and I were talking to the two doctors about the results of her test. And Lauren was over in the waiting area, and there was a woman sitting alone, and she had walked over to her. So I was keeping an eye on her, watching her have a conversation. And when I went to tell her we needed to go, the woman had thanked me and said how special Lauren was because she came over and told her that she was a hug collector, and Lauren was a self-proclaimed hug collector. My sister actually made her a button that said hug collector, and she said that she was so nervous and scared because it was her very first MRI, but Lauren had told her that she had one and gave her a hug and told her it was all going to be okay. And so that was just a special moment, and gave her one of her bracelets. And then I had created Lauren a website for people to sign, because she loved at that point, because she couldn't see, it was another conversation point for her. People could sign her website on her guest book, and then we would read it to her at night. Well, the very next day, we went to go read what was on her website, and there was another woman at the hospital who commented, because Lauren would scream out, "Don't forget to sign my website, laurensvision.com." And another woman signed it, saying that she was watching the whole exchange between her and this woman, and what a special little girl she was. And that though she didn't get to meet her, she just watched her and thought how special it was. So yeah, my little collector.
Your little hug collector. I just, I, even though I did not have the opportunity to ever meet Lauren, I so feel like I know her through your stories and this book. And I think anyone who reads it will feel the same. And a special girl indeed. Um, I feel like this is a great time for our second break, Dan, if this can work for you. And when we come back, we're going to talk more with Lisa and about her journey with Lauren. And so don't go far, listeners. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and TuneIn Radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Soul CPR, everyone. I'm Ann Papayotti, and joining me today is my friend Lisa Cummins, here to talk about her journey with her beautiful daughter, Lauren, and her book, Lauren's Vision. So, Lisa, we've talked about, how Lauren was such a really an outgoing child despite her limitations with her vision, the tumor that was limiting her, and ended up taking her life at the age of 17. Your journey with her, through her, all the ins and outs of the hospitalizations, the medical procedures, how you used your project and program management to really stay organized, how you brought in assistants and aides, and just, really, it was a huge life project to manage her care, how you kept it together when you had to, how you broke down when you were allowed to, I guess is the way to say that, how friends and family and faith were your anchors and your support. So as time was drawing near, um, the 16th birthday, I believe it was, is, as you write in the book, when things were really starting to get harder and harder and harder. What can you share with us about that time in your life, and in Lauren's life?
Well, the reason why that chapter became a pivotal point, and I called it Bittersweet 16, is because we were planning this huge Sweet 16 party for her. Her brother was graduating high school. It was actually this amazing time in our lives. She was recovering so nicely from her hospitalization. We thought we had turned the corner and on this road to healing. And Lauren started having these falls that that other people didn't think was the biggest concern as I did. And when we finally, had her third fall and took her to the hospital, she was diagnosed with what was a malignant tumor at that point. And I just couldn't understand how that could even be possible, because everything that I was ever told was that this tumor would never grow, and not it was not it was like Murphy's law. Everything that should not or would not have happened in Lauren's case. So it just was, you're never prepared for it, even no matter how much you might be prepared. But in this case, the news of having this be a terminal tumor, and they told us they didn't know if she had weeks or months. But again, I kicked into exploring every option. We had taken Lauren to Europe multiple times to visit doctors there. I had studied, I had taken meditation and hypnotherapy, and studied multiple healing modalities. I'm a Reiki master. I studied something called Anra healing, pranic healing. You name it. If I always called it, like, if it couldn't, my philosophy was, if it couldn't hurt her and only help her, I was all for it. So once again, I left no stone unturned. But and the doctors again told us they didn't know how long to expect, because of the type of tumor it was. But in her case, she had a whole year, and we had an entire year of trying things. But as the year went on, towards the end of that year, from her 16th to approaching her 17th birthday, I'll never forget the trip we took to Naples, Florida, to visit her grandparents. And she said she wanted to go, but she was definitely slowing down. She was more tired, more fatigue. And the doctors gave us hope. There were other clinical trials that we were trying. I was looking at things that were on the brink of potentially helping her. And I remember desperately reaching out to a doctor in Texas for this new trial treatment for her type of tumor. And he said it was too big and it was too late. So it just became, increasingly clear that the time was probably growing short. And I had to have one night I remember her lying in bed, and I would always lay down in bed with her. And I'm in her room right now.
Yes.
But I remember her saying to me, "Mommy, I feel like my body is dying." So, and I just stood there for a second going, "Oh my God, she knows." I don't know how she knows, but she knows, because it's not something, we chose to discuss with her. We always wanted to keep the faith and keep positive. And I just explained to her that, one day, we all, cross over and go back home into the light. And I remember telling her that, just remember, wherever you go, I go. Wherever I go, you go. And that I said, all that love that you feel, from Mommy, I said, you take that love with you. And I said, it's actually harder for the people who don't, cross over, because they can't see the physical body anymore. And we have these vessels that were given for a very short time. So it was one of the most difficult conversations I had to have with her. But it was also one of the things I treasure, that I was able to speak to her about, what it would be like, and that our love will always be together.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Both commercial breaks were so I could cry. So here we're not going to take a now. I'm just going to cry anyway, and I'm sure other listeners are as well. What a beautiful moment with your child, though, and a memory. And I love that you're in her room now, and I see the picture on the top shelf. That's one of my favorite pictures. That's actually the picture on the back of the book, isn't it, Lisa? It is. Yeah.
That's a picture of us in Hawaii that she wanted to go on. She still had some vision. She was starting to use a cane on that trip. I have bought us matching dresses. I actually had them made. So
Wow.
yeah, she was a beautiful, beautiful girl. And that's why, it's taken me a long time to get to the place where I'm at. But I know that Lauren completed what she needed to complete here. And I write about it in the book about karma. And that was another thing I dove into. I did a lot of past life regression to understand, why this happens, and especially happens to a child, and how could this have any kind of meaning? Because, you just try and make sense of things. And I needed to make sense of it. And I know in the end, Lauren was complete with what she came here to do. And it was, like I said earlier, it was my honor and privilege to assist her through this journey. And everything I taught her, I had to use for all the other losses that I ended up experiencing including first and foremost the loss of her, and then the loss of my marriage, and then the loss of my job. So there was a lot of loss in about a 2.5 year period, and it literally brought me to my knees. I was physically ill. You talked about earlier your segment last week on the mind body connection. I was sick. I didn't feel myself. My head spun. I had vertigo. I had other symptoms, and it took me a year or two to really use what I taught Lauren to refocus on and how to rebuild my life and to just start. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed. I was in a very dark place. And it helped me understand how other people, what other people experience when they go through depression. And I just surrounded myself. I did a lot of things to climb out of this very dark place I was in, and ultimately was able to continue to reach out with my faith, my family, and my friends, and little by little rebuild myself, rebuild my life, get through the broken marriage, take a fabulous vacation after stopping, working for a company I thought I would retire from. Went on an amazing trip to the South Pacific for a month, and not being sure I was going to find a job. I was in my 50s at the time, and ended up landing an incredible job working with incredible people for one of the top IT software companies, cloud companies in the world. And I am now just turning another page and starting a new chapter. I am selling the house where I raised my children. So this will be one of the very last times I'm in this room with Lauren's things, which is another emotional thing to have to go through. But I just sold the house to a wonderful family and found a beautiful place to live by the water, back where I started when I first got out of college in Long Beach.
There's some really cool signs. So for listeners who believe in signs, I want you to hear these from Lisa about the signs. So Lisa, tell them these, I don't know, cosmic connections about the timing with the house.
So I didn't expect to sell the house as soon as I did. The house sold in 2.5 weeks, and we ended up signing the contract for the house on Lauren's birthday, which was last Monday, March 25th. And I also signed the lease for the new place that I'm going to move into on March 25th. So I know that Lauren, it makes me smile to think that Lauren had something to do with all of this, because the timing of it is just uncanny.
Yeah. And the validation of it, because I know when I came to visit you in your home and you were thinking about it, but there was that, that tug of war of giving up the home and where you raised your children and where Lauren passed, and it, so much connection and emotion tied to the house. And so to get to that place and to, like you say, it was like Lauren to have that little hand in it. And then talk about about Chris, her brother, and his, the beautiful things that have happened in his life.
Sure. So Chris just got married over the summer, and he lives up, about 7 hours north of here, but he and his beautiful wife, Kayla, are looking to move back a little closer to the area in New Jersey. And what else can I tell you about that? Wasn't there something that I wanted to mention to you about Chris?
I was gonna mention that to
Oh,
you that I have so enjoyed watching The Voice this season because Chance the Rapper judge, and I remembered, and you had told me this before you wrote it in the book, and when you came to visit me in Dallas, and we were, kind of, you were having me read the book, and I was very privileged to write the foreword for this book for Lisa, and also just to spend time with her, kind of being one of those first edits before it went to a professional editor. But there was the story, she wasn't sure to include it or not. I'm like, you have to put this in. But I'm going to have you share with them if you don't mind. But I think it's so special about
so yeah,
this.
Chance the Rapper. This is going back. Chance the Rapper is one of Christopher's favorite artists, and Chris was going to school up in Geneseo in New York, and he was, I think, going to be up in Buffalo or something. So none of Chris's friends wanted to go with him. So he decided to go by himself, and it was I don't know, we were there stand up only, but he went early to get VIP seating and also got to meet Chance the Rapper. And he went, and when he got to meet Chance, he actually gave him a bracelet, and he told him the story about his sister and how he went through just some really tough times and how Chance's music really helped him get through. And Chance is a very spiritual person, and he just thanked Christopher, and he told him, that he really appreciated the bracelet. And Christopher thought that would be the end of it, that he would just take the bracelet and put it aside with other things. But when Chance came out on stage, he was wearing the bracelet, and that alone touched my son's heart. But then at one point when he was singing one of the songs, he looked right at Christopher, and he actually held up his hand with the bracelet. And he said, "This next song is for all of you that have gone through something really tough." And he made eye contact with Christopher, and it was just an incredible experience for him. So yeah, Chance the Rapper, and Chance is on The Voice right now. So
Yeah, and I never knew who he was before this story. By the way, it just wasn't in my genre. Dan and I laughed, our engineer here in the back room, that our listeners don't get to see and hear from, but I talk too often in my shows when I'm on. And Dan tends to know my music. Dan, do you know Chance the Rapper, or did you before this? He'll put it in the chat. I do. He says I do. Okay, but I did not before Lisa shared Chris's encounter with him, but now now I'm a super fan of Chance the Rapper because of that. So like Chance did in that concert and said, this is for everybody going through something hard. Lisa's book is for everyone going through something difficult as well. It really is. I think everyone will see themselves in this somewhere, for the struggle, for the tragedy, and for the triumph. And anyone who struggles to triumph, I think Lisa is an inspiration in how she is so open and honest about the heartbreak, the breaking open, the struggle, the even the physical, as she was sharing how she became physically ill after all the loss, but then how she also picked herself up and rebuilt, because that is what you have to do. And she did that, and she's here today to talk about that and share that with all of you. So and getting back to the water is really, I believe you used the words with me, is kind of like coming full circle. That was before you married, before you became a mom. That was kind of, so this is going to be healing for you, I'm sure, in many ways.
it is a full circle. And I'll just add too that, we talk a lot about loss and different kinds of loss, but my son didn't actually believe I was going to sell the house because he says I've been talking about it for years. But one of the last things I wanted to do was, I wasn't sure when he got married, if he was going to get married locally, or he ended up getting married up by where his wife lives, which was beautiful on a vineyard. But I was able to have the pictures taken in with their wedding dress and suit that he wore, and take pictures in this house. And I really feel like that was complete for me, because losing a house where you raised your family, I've been here for 20 years, that's a loss. And there's grieving that goes along with that, saying goodbye. Like I'm in this big 5-bedroom house, and I didn't have to move anything, though I tried to little by little do things. But that's another loss. It's just like leaving a place, and the loss of the life that I thought I was going to have,
Right.
with my children, with my daughter still here, with the marriage I thought I was going to have, when unexpected things happen. So there's a lot there. So yeah, this is full circle for me to go back to a place where I love. The water has always meant a lot. I love lighting fires, and I just love the elements. And there's something about listening to the ocean that's so soothing. So I decided it was time. And like we said, the stars aligned on this. And there were signs, from Lauren, that there was some sort of connection there as well. And I just feel really good about it. And I'm just super excited for what's next and to start this next adventure.
Perfect. It's time now for our final break. And when we come back, we'll have our closing comments. So don't go far. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're in our closing segment for today's episode. And Lisa, one last question. How have you shown yourself that you are stronger than you know? Another chapter title.
Stronger than I know. I think standing here is a testament to being stronger than I know. But
Yeah.
to kind of take everything I learned from Lauren and put that forward. I think one of the biggest testaments is I created a giving account for Lauren. And what that means is I can fund an account that gets invested, and then that money continues to grow. And what I decided to do with that, instead of opening up a trust, is this giving account. And every year on Lauren's birthday, well, between her birthday and her passing, which is only 2 weeks apart, Christopher and I choose a fund, a charity, to donate money to in her name. And we take the interest that was earned from that account for the year that I continue to contribute with the book proceeds or other, times that I just want to make a donation to give a gift to Lauren. And it makes me feel good because I say that account will continue to grow forever, just like her love. And I can continue to spread love, energy, and power by choosing a charity that will just go on and on and on. And I will pass it down to my son, and he can pass it to his family. And that's the way I leave the legacy of Lauren. I think everybody does something a little different to honor those that they have loved and that have, have crossed. And that's one of the things I've done. And it brings happiness and joy to a time that could otherwise be very sad.
My friend, you are stronger than you know. And what charity did you and Chris choose this year?
So this year was very special because my niece, Jessica, works for the Miller Place School District where both Chris and Lauren went to school. And she's the coach for the robotics team. And they needed jerseys for the team for their tournaments. And, she had inquired if that was something I could donate to. And I said, I can only donate to a 501c. And in fact, her club, the Booster Club, is a 501c. So, and the account did very well last year. So I was really happy that I was able to fund the entire jerseys that she needed for her team in Lauren's name. So Chris and I agreed that would be the place where we would like to donate this year. So it's the 5th year. I established that account back in 2020, and we've given to places like Make-A-Wish, Give Kids the World, the Guide Dog Foundation, and other things that are near and dear to our heart. So we were happy to do that this year.
So quick, the eclipse there's a special meaning with the eclipse, and tie that in real quick, and then we're going to put up your website.
Sure. Just another little interesting thing that happened. The lunar eclipse was on Lauren's birthday, March 25th, and the solar eclipse is on the day she passed, April 8th. So Christopher was able to come home for that weekend and, start helping identify what he wanted in the house since it's happening. And I'm going up to see the solar eclipse is on the path where he lives up in the Finger Lake area. So I'll be going up there this weekend.
More little Lauren winks to her mom. That's how I see them. All right. Well, thank you. So where can everyone get their copy of Lauren's Vision?
So the book is on Amazon, so they can just go to amazon.com and just search for the title, Lauren's Vision. It's available in all formats, paperback, hard copy, ebook. And you can also go to, I have a website, laurensvision.com, and they can see all the details on there as well.
Perfect. laurensvision.com and Amazon for Lauren's Vision. So Lisa, thank you for being on the show today. I would full of heart gratitude. So listeners, as we conclude today's episode, remember that healing out loud and healing in general is not linear. It is a journey, just like Lisa was sharing for you today. So if today's stories resonated with you, please share this podcast with someone else who may need a lifeline of their own. Please subscribe, rate, leave a review so we can reach more hearts. You can connect with me on social media at Ann Papayotti. I can't remember where, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. And there we go. Thank you, Dan. I need you all the time. All right, there's my QR code. You can scan that if you're viewing and go straight to my website. You can get my book, The Gift of Shift, from there. Also on Amazon, skyviewcoaching.com to connect with me as well. Facebook, you can connect with me on Skyview Coaching as well. So until next time, may you find strength in your journey and courage as well. And as I always say, breathe deeply, love openly, and live soulfully. Thanks for joining. See you next time.
Thank you, Ann. Love you.
Love you.
This has been Soul CPR with host Ann Papayotti. Breathe life back into your spirit with each episode, where she and special guests explore the relationships that hurt us and discover that healing can only begin with you. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.